I want to take credit for keeping Tampa Bay safe from communist aggression all the years that I flew those missions out of McDill. We didn't have one attack on the Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to talk just a little bit about the demographics of what we have going on in Florida, how that translates to the city of St. Petersburg, and then a couple of the big issues that we have going on in our city. So, a lot of you all know that Florida is one of the three fastest growing states in the country. Texas, Florida, and Arizona are seeing a lot of migration from northern high-tax states to southern low-tax states. Here in Florida, we're experiencing growth of about 1,000 people a day moving to the state. For the city of St. Petersburg, that translates to about 2,500 to 2,800 people a year moving to our city. If you know the city of St. Petersburg, 60 square miles, not a whole lot of vacant land. So a lot of the growth that we're seeing is vertical development. We have a beautiful city. Our founding fathers created this beautiful waterfront park system, 7 miles of park, that is preserved. And we really value our quality of life in St. Petersburg. So the struggles that we have right now is kind of the yin and the yang. How do we accommodate the growth but preserve our quality of life? And that's what we're experiencing right now. And if you haven't been to St. Petersburg in a little while, if in 6 months time, you'll come to our city, and it's a lot like it is over here in Tampa, but you'll see cranes, you'll see new buildings that just seem to pop up out of the ground, and people that have been away for 6 months to a year sometimes wonder, like, wow, where did all this come from? Bill mentioned the pier. The pier is a very big attraction in our waterfront in St. Petersburg. I call the pier the most studied piece of real estate ever in the history of St. Petersburg. We started studying the pier 11 years before we opened it up. And we had a series of task forces, and we had 3 successive mayors. Started with Mayor Baker, then Mayor Foster, then Mayor Kreisman. All had task forces to study the pier, and it was kind of a conundrum of how can we build the best pier for what the people want, and we ended up with a fabulous project and an attraction from the youngest kids to elderly people. We've got something for everybody out there. So if you haven't been to the pier, please come visit. Yeah, you'll like it. The biggest issue right now that we have in the city is what are we going to do with the 86 acres around Tropicana Field. Mayor Kreisman is in the last year of his term, and he's got 4 or 5 big projects that he's trying to push through, and the biggest one is the redevelopment of the Tropicana Field site. The Tropicana Field site was assembled back in the 80s. The land was assembled, the stadium was built, and it all in between the city, the county, and the state, we've invested about $400 million to get the stadium in place to attract a Major League Baseball team, which we did. To protect that investment, the city signed a use agreement with the Rays that protects the city's interest, the county's interest, and the Rays' interest. And that use agreement goes through the end of the 2027 season. In that agreement, the Rays have certain rights when it comes to new development, and the county, in order for the city not to have to pay property taxes, the county is involved also, and any new development needs to be approved by the Rays and by the county. So when it comes to trying to do something out there at the Tropicana Field site, there's kind of 4 legs to the stool. You've got both branches of the city government, the city council, and the mayor. You also have the county commission, and you have the Rays. The mayor issued an RFP back in July of last year. We received 9 respondents. 2 immediately were thrown out. Now, then we had 7. We're now down to, and the mayor has shortlisted them down to 4 to be a master developer on that site. The missing piece in all this is the Rays haven't been included. I've been speaking with the Rays. I invited the Rays to come to our city council meeting next week to talk about their vision for what they want to see on the site. And we need to have the Rays involved. Having a Major League Baseball team in your whole hometown, having a Major League Baseball team in the Tampa Bay region is extremely important. I have to say I'm not a big fan of the split season plan that the Rays are talking about doing, but I do want to have that conversation with them, and I want to put our full faith effort in to try to keep the Rays, hopefully in St. Petersburg, and if not St. Petersburg, somewhere in the Tampa Bay region. So that's one of the biggest issues we're facing right now. The mayor has some other big things that we're working on also. He wants to privatize the marina. There's a big city office building that he wants to sell and build a new city office building just north of City Hall and some other big projects. But things in St. Petersburg are going very well. We're a beautiful city. I'm very proud to serve on our city council with some great members of our city council. We were up late last night making sausage to about 9:30 in the morning, or 9:30 last night, so it was kind of a short night finishing up there and getting over here. But I'm very glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Okay. Well, Chairman Montanari, thanks for coming to Tampa. You're always welcome here to the greatest city in Florida. You, of course, are from the second greatest city. I love St. Petersburg, but I am born and raised in Tampa, so Tampa is where my heart is. I'm a first-generation American. My mother is a Cuban immigrant, and my father came from Sicily about 40 years ago, and I came along after they met and got married. So I've been here my whole life, but my family's story is the Tampa story, the immigrant story, but it's fast forward half a century or more. My mom came here in 1961, again my dad in 81, but so many of the immigrants that came to this community came here in the late 1800s or at the turn of the 20th century. But they came from the same places, either Cuba, either Spain, Sicily, parts of Italy, and they made their home here. And when we talk about Tampa, our foundation is built by immigrants. Everything that we see is built by immigrants. And I've often heard and I've often said that there's no place in the world like Tampa. There's no place in the world like Ybor City. It's not even a melting pot, it's a paella. If you've heard this thing, it's a paella because we have all the individual flavors, but together we create that beautiful dish. So having said that, Tampa's been my home. I'm born, raised, and I'm educated here. I went to Tampa Catholic High School. I went to ACC. I graduated from USF. So I've always stayed here, and I've always made it a point to stay here. And ever since I was a teenager, I was inspired by the elected officials of that time and wanting to get involved in local government. Because people ask me, you're a city councilman, why municipal government? Why city council? People like Mayor Dick Greco, who was the mayor when I was a teenager, or Councilmember Linda Salcena, that I've always looked up to, inspired me to want to serve locally, because all politics is local. You can go to Washington, you can go to Tallahassee, but when you're in the city council level, or even the county commission level, you live and you serve and you work in the district with the people that you represent. I can go to the grocery store, I can go get a sandwich, I can go to the coffee shop, I can come to the Oxford Exchange, and you bump into your constituents, and you're easily accessible. So that's why I've always focused on local government and wanting to be a city council member, and that's why I'm here. I was elected in 2015, I was re-elected in 2019, and in 2020 I was elected by my colleagues to serve as chairperson of the Tampa City Council. And then COVID hit. And it's been a virtual world, a world of masks, a world of very, very different. And I'm glad to be in a room full of people, and I haven't been to many events in the last year, so this is one of the very few, but it's good to see folks. Hopefully with these vaccines, we see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I will say that this last year, as much good that has come out of it, it's a year that I'd like to forget. And I think a lot of people like to forget because it's been a major strain on so many levels with so many different people. So having said that, Tampa climbed out of a horrible recession. I graduated USF in 2007, and my friends and I heard the same story. Well, we have a college degree. Well, there are no jobs. Go wait tables, go work retail, go whatever was there. You know, we had these degrees. Many of my friends had student loan debt, but there were no jobs. Why? We were heading into this economic collapse, this housing market collapse. It just wasn't there. And I mean, listening to people of my grandparents' age, or even my parents, they would say, you know, we've never experienced anything like this, or this reminds me of the Depression era. I mean, we didn't know what was coming. So I graduated USF. I come out into this world where things are starting to fall apart. And that's when I'm starting to think about when I want to run for city council. Because I first ran in 2011, and it was in the midst of, budget cuts, layoffs within the city of Tampa, a very, a big budget deficit, and a lot of struggles. I did not win that election, and I'm glad for many reasons. Why? Because I would go in as a 25, 26-year-old making very, very difficult budget decisions. And that's when Mayor Buckhorn came in, and of course, with the city council, with his leadership, we grew out of that. But I was elected in 2015 with better circumstances. Things were turning around. And if you look at Tampa's growth since, it went from foreclosures and large amounts of empty homes, meaning no city services going to those empty homes, meaning revenue decreases, meaning layoffs within the city, business closures, real estate values were at an all-time low, I think, in 2012. Now it's the complete opposite. But we've completely flipped that because the housing market is insane right now. Housing prices in the city of Tampa are out of control. I go to the Riverwalk, or I go to Armature Works, or I go to the mall, or I go to wherever I go, and I don't see familiar faces as I used to because there's so many new people that have moved to Tampa. When I met a gentleman who went to Plant High School, born and raised here, and he goes, "I like you because you're a good Tampa boy." I go, "There's a lot of good Tampa boys and good Tampa girls," and he goes, "Everybody that I meet is from New York and Philadelphia and Ohio and parts of New Jersey and Minnesota," and it's like, "But there's no Tampa people." And I go, "There are Tampa people, but the fact is, the people that I meet are, I've been here 6 months, I've been here a year, my job relocated me here, there's the Air Force Base, so there's always movement through there." But the fact is, going back to when I graduated college, I stayed, but all my friends that moved down here to go to school that couldn't find jobs, they said, "Tampa doesn't have what I need," and they left. The closest one, I think, went to Brooksville. From Pennsylvania to Tampa to Brooksville. And I'm thinking to myself, nothing wrong with Brooksville. We lost someone to Brooksville. I mean, we have so much to offer. Now, because I talked to him last night, he tells me, "I see this about Tampa, and I see this what you post, and I'm sorry that I left." And I go, "Well, come back." He's a teacher. I go, "Come back." Well, that's another situation with the school district, but I go, "There's a place for you here. You're always welcome here." But it's amazing how Tampa's become such a hotspot. We're a good balance. We're not Miami, which is great, but it can be overwhelming. We're not Orlando. The I-4 corridor through Central Florida can be overwhelming. Tampa's a good balance. There's still that small town feel in many ways, but we're moving towards being that big city. You see it with the cranes, the building downtown, midtown, the revitalization of many of our neighborhoods. Seminole Heights, Tampa Heights, look at the property values there. I mean, my parents don't understand it. My father and I would drive down from Martin Luther King, Buffalo Avenue at the time, down Tampa Street to downtown as a kid to visit one of his friends. And we would just drive through Tampa Heights, and we would drive through Seminole Heights. And to him, in his mind, there's still $40,000 and $50,000 houses. And I go, "These are $500,000 homes." That's a $500,000 home. I go, "That's a $650,000 home." It's crazy how our neighborhoods are coming back. And it's not just Hyde Park, because it's another historic area. I went to St. John's Greek Orthodox, what used to be on Swan. So I saw the changes from what Hyde Park used to be, always great. But now I call it untouchable. I was walking past Burns a couple weeks ago and I saw this beautiful house for sale, and I go, "Oh, what's a house like this? $500,000? So I go to Zillow, which you can't trust Zillow prices, $1 million. And I'm thinking to myself, there was a time when I think Hyde Park was redlined and you couldn't get a bank loan and it had to be cash, and now everybody wants to come. Everybody wants to go to Seminole Heights and Tampa Heights. It's just unbelievable. In West Tampa too. I'm from there near Raymond James Stadium. That was middle class, working class. These houses are $300,000-$400,000. Houses that, my grandfather bought his first house in West Tampa in 1972 for $14,000. I bet you that house brings $350,000. The point is, I'm glad, but who can afford it? You know, someone mentioned affordable housing, and we look at, through city council, we get a lot of rezonings and a lot of apartments. And they're not cheap apartments. They're not affordable, rent controlled, whatever they are. They're $1,600, $2,000. Studio is this much. One bedroom is this. And I ask myself, because they rent them, I go, what do these folks do for a living? What do these people do for a living that they're paying this much in rent? They're giving the money to the landlord or the developer. It's not home ownership. It's not the American dream. What are they doing? I'm sorry I didn't buy 10 years ago. But banks were not giving out money like they were now. It was harder to get finance. You had to have great credit, a bunch of money down, but you could get a house for 80 grand, 100 grand at the bottom of the market. Now those houses are 4 times more expensive. But it doesn't stop people from moving here. And folks will say, like they did yesterday in the conversation, well, they're coming from California and New York. It's a lot more expensive to live out there, so $2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom is cheap compared to Irvine, California, or somewhere in New York City, whatever. New York City, what was it? A studio, last time I checked, it's been a while, $2,500 or $3,000 for 500-600 square feet. Oh, but you're in the city. But it's like you're in a closet, spending that kind of money when you should be putting it towards home ownership. But the thing is, it's just not there. So when we talk about affordable housing, we have to look at the land values. A piece of property, an empty lot in West Tampa could be $120,000, $140,000. It was $25,000 10 years ago. I remember my friend and I go, how do we put together 25 grand and buy this old house? It was a house that we could have rehabbed on a piece of land, but we would have the land for 25 grand and it'd be worth more today. We didn't have the money. So I can't go back in time, but the thing is, things are getting more expensive. Salaries are not increasing. Pay raises aren't coming. The minimum wage stays stagnant. And I know the minimum wage, it's another topic and whatnot, but what do we do to catch up with the times, with the cost of living? Tampa's a great place to live if you can afford it. And that's the question that comes up in the struggle. So I'll stop there because I'll just keep rambling and I know we have questions.
Before we go into questions, I just wanted to announce that the buffet table has been